Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll take a peek over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the altcoin market, as we have a green start to this new week. We'll peek at a couple of different altcoins, and we'll peek over there at the XRP price chart, as there's a lot of debate on where this market does go to next. In my last video, I was trying to give examples of what I'm seeing over here throughout the market. I see this in many different places of what recoveries have looked like in past cycles for the cryptocurrency market after 80% crashes have happened. And in that last video, especially talking about times where we've seen the market do that, where we didn't go into expansion, but there were a couple of assets that did those big multi-100% rises, then fell 80%. Then things went on to recover, like hopefully what we're seeing in the market currently right now. And after the market had rejected the 702 Fibonacci retracement back in March of this year. Now, I, of course, am running with this hypothesis that was outlined in November of last year, of a big move to the retracement levels, followed by a 55% crash back to the preliminary support. That is where we are currently at right now, back at the preliminary support after a 58% crash throughout the market. But in many assets, we can find things of like 80%. And we've gone through these several times. We even referenced this to SWI versus Solana. So right here, I have TIA versus SIA coin from 2017. But even back in August, we were looking at things like SWI versus Solana from 2021. And these were all those same things of those 80% crashes that happen in the market in order for them to fully recover. So it's been very optimistic, of course, to see SWI pull that off here and get right back to the highs, similarly to what we have seen before. My thoughts are we are seeing something like that happen in the market right now. Whether or not there's still another little push to these levels first before it gets going. We're kind of playing with tiny time frames to try to guess that right in here, but I think what we are working on is just structurally that whole thing going on there of a reversal happening in the market. Even another example of that, of looking at things like this and then waddling at the lows to finally break it one more time and then pull back violently like this. Not just using these. You can look at that even for Bitcoin from back in 2022. That's what all of this is. And I'll get this off of here to see the capitulation, the holding, the new low, the pushback, right? The capitulation, the holding, the new low, the pushback, that you're just kind of working the bottom out happening in here before things can march their way up. Now, it's hard for people to really kind of get a lot of faith in that right now because it's been 7 months since the top came in back on March 14th. You have a lot of pessimism out there. You've got a lot of the bulls switching over to bears. You've got a lot of noise coming at you from a lot of different directions and different theories. One of those things, of course, that I see everywhere is that just kind of saying, hey, watch out for this level, essentially that it's like the retrace of 2019 and then pretty much the C19 crash of 2020 happening after that, right? So I see this all over the place over here on Twitter here in the last month or two. We've shown this on the channel. I've posted about this over there on Twitter. I'm not convinced that this is what we have to do in here. But now that 7 months have passed, the market has fallen. All the bull 2016 and 2020 ideology has pretty much been washed. Everybody's still trying to use a model from the past. And so the only real model from the past that people can reference to is really what happened in 2020 before C19 happened. And essentially, this is what ended up happening, right? Getting back to that resistance level and then ultimately breaking down and crumbling after that. Which, of course, if that ended up happening, would mean that this was never a bull market in the first place. This whole thing was just a big retracement. That's it. We got a long time ahead of us. However, when I look throughout the market, I just don't see those things because I see so many bottoming structures happening throughout the market. Even things that we talked about on XRP last week, which we'll touch on here in just a second, those are still all like bottoming things that are happening, even with that SEC appeal happening and that sell-off and the range that it's still stuck in, which somehow it's still in it today. It has not broken down further. But the fact that we're seeing things like SWI completely take off, and we had identified that back in August, and while we do have these structures really just everywhere throughout this market, along with, like we talked about the last 2 weeks, seeing the breadth open up in the market. We don't see that breadth open up. It does not falsely trigger, or at least it hasn't, since the peak of this market. And it kind of feels like it's not popular to be bullish right now, which is, kind of the way I like it to be. It's that euphoria that always terrifies me. But structurally, we've really done all these things of what bottoms look like. I'm really excited of where we're at. The thing I'm just not really completely convinced on yet is whether or not this thing is still just going to bounce around in here, if this is just kind of one of these, or if it's more just one of those. But these bottoming structures would all indicate the low is actually already in. And while that's what we identified over there with SWE, and SWE has obviously just carried away itself away like crazy. And if you look around on social media, it's pretty funny because everybody really relates it to Solana now. That's really become kind of the popular thing to say. And of course, that's what we were relating it to back there in August, like on August 6th and 7th. So typically these types of things aren't happening in the market if there's not some type of underneath the hood dynamic switch happening in there. But of course, everybody's on edge to say, hey, are we about to C19 this thing? I'm going to lean on it that we're not, that it's going to be more of just those things we see where it's kind of an ABC and there can be like a liquidation that happens in here before it turns its way up. And even in something like that and in these style behaviors, it is more of like moving up in here and then the ABC kind of working out in here rather than something super fast. I mean, I'll take an exit really quickly, but yeah, even that, the ABC, right? That's what the market did right here for Bitcoin at that moment. And that's what the altcoin market did at that moment, is the ABC in there. However, if you're looking for confluence for that and defensive plays for that, that's essentially what happened. It's essentially where you got to on the altcoin market up there, about 1.06 trillion. But just, even for the 4-year cycle people, for the block reward having people, if you had the C19 crash come up next, the 4-year cycles and block reward having cycles would literally be dead at that point. You have nothing. You're already at the longest ever. The fantasy, the narrative, it just gets completely killed at that point. But like even for another example of an ABC, right? Even when SWE got out of here, you could see it did it right in here, right? And that's really kind of my thoughts of just market wide next, something along those lines in there. That typically when we get our way out of here, we'll pull off some of those types of things. But of course, last week I gave you additional examples of that as well, of how those could look like if they end up being drawn out. I don't cheer for drawn out. I know that there is no such thing as team sideways. There's the bulls, there's the bears, there's nobody in between. Nobody likes sideways. I'm definitely not cheering for that. But these are just the types of things that can happen in here while the market is trying to recover. And I'll speak to psychology really quick because I do have that opportunity to kind of talk to people and look around on X and see things, right? Like understanding that, like back in March, if you posted anything bearish, you were met with absolute disdain, chastising, and hatred. But however, if you do it now, it is much more socially accepted to be bearish now. And that typically is what happens after long periods of downtrends. I see comments out there, people just being like, I'm dead inside. I don't feel anything, whatever. There's no hope, right? And that's definitely just what markets do. And typically those are the best signs when people feel that way. And I always talk about emotional logs and writing in them. And hopefully people did when things were incredibly exciting. Like that's exactly when I was really documenting a lot of my own stuff, was back there in 2018 when the market capitulated back in here. I was writing all throughout here and I got to write all throughout that and then write through all that and write through all of that extreme excitement that happened throughout the market. And you can just see it in my emotional log. I've shared that with you guys in Markets in the Morning and streams and newsletters and videos and really documenting that. And so when we went through all of that back there in February, March, and April of this year, it was just like I'm watching the exact same story play out of exactly how my emotions were, exactly how I had documented what the market was like back that time during that. But one of the things that, was happening kind of when we got back to here is there was an extreme level of excitement. And I don't see that over there currently right now in the market. And I don't see that when we're looking at things like Google Trends or engagement that's happening out there in social media, is that there's a lot of pessimism right now. And I think the thing that's going to catch everybody off guard is if the market is actually more like this. And this is really what my thoughts are right now, that it's much more potentially that we're kind of working out like that. I don't think there's a tremendous amount in Bitcoin, but I think the scenario we're seeing playing out is that this market is bottoming. This will catch everybody by surprise if this is how the market does play out, which is the way I'm leaning. There does have to be the caution of the C19 crash when we get back up in here, but I don't think that this is on the bingo card of anybody, because I think everybody has tried to use past models. I think everybody's tried to use 2016. They've tried to use 2020. They're now trying to use C19 crashes. Everything is referencing back to past behavior that we've seen in here. And what I actually think is happening is something along the lines of this. And again, reiterating those times of this time has been different. Things have been different in this market. Again, not from a narrative perspective. The ETFs don't mean anything when I'm talking about this time is different. FTX collapsing does not mean anything when I'm talking about this time is different. I'm talking about price action and price behavior of this market and things happening like in the stock market where the stock market hasn't expanded yet, right? That's different from all past times when we've gotten to these moments and gotten this far along in cycles for Bitcoin. That this is the longest cycle ever for Bitcoin because this time has been different. There hasn't been an expansion in the stock market. But I also think that this isn't on the bingo card of anybody and what would ultimately happen. Imagine it getting out of here and what would be the case, right? The case would be, oh boy, this is just the beginning. This is just the start. We still have so much more time. This thing is going to go supersonic, absolutely insane. 200, 400, $1 million calls happening in there, right? And that, I'm more optimistic that we're not going to have a C19 crash, but that it's going to catch everybody by surprise that this could waddle in here, right? And maybe this is how we see that ABC happening throughout the cryptocurrency market and the altcoin market is that it's going to ABC while it's going to have to do some sloshing in here. Everybody worried the whole time, right? That would be the perfect thing, right? Like that just perfectly describes what happened back in 2022 and 2023 as this market did ABC down in here. For those who were here that whole time, right? Most of you were. This is still all calls for 12K. This is all calls for everything's going to go lower, but it doesn't. And we were looking for just that. Here we are, January of 2023. That ABC. Well, imagine the altcoin market ABCing in here while Bitcoin's just teasing up in here at this level, right in here the whole time. And everybody is screaming for the C19 crash to come next, right? It's just a repeat. It's the exact same thing over and over again. So psychologically, it would be very difficult. And so if it's surprised to the upside, it would be very similar to like kind of what we experienced where things surprise to the upside. Boom, suddenly the euphoria turns on, the excitement turns on, altcoins turn on, everything turns on. And this is just the beginning. We're just starting and we do it all over again, right? And so that's really kind of where my mindset is at, is that I do think we are working this out. I do not think the C19 crash is going to be coming up next. You have to be mindful of it, definitely. However, when you're looking throughout the market, you're looking at these altcoins, they're all doing these bottoming structures. The breadth fired off for the first time in 7 months. We've gone through this on XRP, which has somehow, some way still been able to completely hold itself ever since the appeal was filed by the SEC against Ripple, that even in here, all of these things still just continue to hold and waddle structurally throughout the whole market. We're like primed okay for a surprise. And I've described that in the past of being like a surprise showing up, that these structures aren't bearish. People call things bullish when they're straight lined up. No, that's the reward for going through the accumulation schematics. It's essentially musical chairs once the straight line up is happening. But I think this period is just going to be tough from a psychological perspective because I've just seen the movie play out so many times in this market, especially in my position. I've been making YouTube videos for almost 5 years now. I watch it happen over and over again. That, right, everybody's a super mega bull at the top. Enough time elapses, then everybody becomes super mega bearish and everybody becomes pessimistic. Then everybody becomes very worried that a bigger crash is going to come after things have already pulled back dramatically. And we have to kind of go through this thing over and over again, right? We get to the top, hey, watch out, it's euphoric. We get to the bottom, they're prolonged, they take some time. The bulls flop to bears, and everything just kind of repeats itself over and over again. And while there's a lot of noise out there, there's a lot of screaming out there, and I'm looking through this market, I just find way more reasons to be optimistic at this point than to be pessimistic or to be screaming for further downside at this point. We've gotten it. We've gotten the big move after hitting the retracement. We've got our first assets starting to wake up in here, and we've got the structures of assets that look like they want to do the same thing. And I try not to come on here and say, I've got the secret formula. I see something and I'm not going to share it with you. And I'm a guru and I have all these special things that I have going on in the back end. I try to give you examples of everything. I don't ever want it to be perceived that I have some magic going on back here that tells me something that you can't see for yourself. I always want there to be examples out there. I always want there to be things to show that this is how markets react and this is how markets behave. This is what crashes look like and this is what bottoms look like. And to try to supplement that with multiple examples so you can see them for yourself. That way you can try to identify them on your own. Everybody's saying SWE looks like Solana now over there on social media is because when it was back here, it had that exact same thing going on for it. The only thing that's changed is it just confirmed it, right? It looks more like Solana, but it's not that I'm going to come on here and say, hey, sweet is the next Solana. I'll come on here and I'll show you, look, these charts are doing the same thing. Which again, there you go, August 7th, 2024, giving all the examples and showing these things. And so when we look throughout the market, and we look at all these examples, I always try to back it up by saying, hey, look, these are what these things are doing. And then, of course, if people are screaming that we're going to see some major crash coming, showing, okay, here's the idea. People are essentially using the C19 crash as their examples. And it's been a long time since I've been this optimistic about this market. We had to go through a very long period of 2022 and 2023 looking for the retrace to come in here. And it's been very complex of what has happened here on the pullback without an expansion happening in this market. But I haven't been this optimistic on the market than I am right now. And I may not sound like it in this video because I've gone back and listened a lot to it. I've kind of been dealing with a headache and some exhaustion. So I'm not my typical hey in this video. But, of course, there's even a little bit of probably frustration in there, just kind of like recognizing it, like, here we go again. We're at the lows and we have the crowd again, very bearish, looking for major crashes again. Which typically always happens after prices have fallen far enough where the crowd has kind of thrown in the towel. Now they're deciding to play to the downside, which is kind of like what happens to the upside, right? We watched it, the wall of worry as we climbed the whole way up. Then the euphoria kicks in, and then just everybody overwhelmingly confidently bullish, right? As we drift down, everybody loses hope. But I'm going to be coming on here saying, hey, I am actually pretty optimistic right now. But knowing that there will be pushback on that, and that is part of this gig, and that's part of how it goes. But what's the old saying? Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. I truly believe the market is fearful right now. I believe participants are fearful right now. I believe they're all looking for the C19 crash to come in next, whereas I'm looking around the market and I'm seeing that these things are creating bottoms everywhere. So we just got to work through it, but I think things are good. And I'm not saying that there can't just be some more washing around in here. There certainly can. So don't interpret that as up only from today. But I think those who are looking for the whole market to crash down and everything to happen from here, I just don't see it anywhere. If it happened, it would certainly catch me by total surprise. And I'm fully entered into this market. I even posted about it in my last newsletter, which was the longest newsletter I've ever written. Even the audio recording for it is 1 hour and 14 minutes long. Just the audio recording took me a full day to do and edit. And I'm actively going through like old wallets to try to find like old trash that I've had for years to try to get that stuff shifted into where I actually want it to be. So my money is where my mouth is. I'm fully entered into this market. So let's see how it goes. But all right, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Be safe out there, Florida. You got a big hurricane coming your way. Man, I don't like seeing those things. Take the cautions. My heart is breaking for the people out there in North Carolina and Virginia and South Carolina and Georgia and Tennessee and Kentucky. If you guys remember, in 2021, I went on a big road trip around the United States, and that was my absolute favorite area over there was Western North Carolina, Western Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee. I really, really love that area, and I know they're going through a very difficult time right now and probably can't even hear my voice right now because of electricity issues and just dealing with their own issues going on right there. So people in Florida, be safe of the hurricane coming your way. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing out. Of course, you guys can check out the newsletter here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Check out my website at bcbacker.com for over 40 videos and 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys again this week. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.